This is Ben from Cinema Gulp. Today we're reviewing The Nice Guys. As usual, this is a spoiler-heavy review, so if you haven't seen the film, please go out and do so and revisit us.
Equanimity. Quality of being calm.
Who is it?
Messenger service. Even tempered. March, we're gonna play a game.
I think you have the wrong house.
It's called Shut Up Unless You're Me.
I love that game.
You're a private investigator?
There's 20 bucks in there, all right? Just take it.
No, not here for that. I'm a messenger. Give me your left arm.
No!
Yeah, come on. No. When you're talking to your doctor, tell him you have a spiral fracture.
No!
Deep breath.
As one of Hollywood's highest paid screenwriters, Shane Black has put pen to page on such classic films as Lethal Weapon 1 and 2, and other buddy comedy action films such as The Last Boy Scout and The Long Kiss Goodnight, while also cementing himself as a director as well, directing such films as Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and the profitable yet not so amazing Iron Man 3. The Nice Guys is Shane Black's best script since Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and in my opinion, his best directorial effort to date. A real throwback to what I love about films during my childhood, the buddy cop genre is alive and well and lives through this film. Only this time, it's not a pairing of one comedic flavor of the month and a rap star turned actor for a juvenile romp that satisfies massive built-in audiences. It's two distinguished actors, both with gravitas and their own earned voices and identities in cinema. So John, what did you think of The Nice Guys?
I really enjoyed this movie. Finally, a movie that we're reviewing that I can recommend to people and say, go out there and see this movie right away. I thoroughly enjoyed myself the entire time while watching this movie. It's not a perfect movie. It does have some faults, but being that it's a comedy, I can overlook a lot of the faults. But what really stands out in this movie, I would say, is Ryan Gosling's performance.
Absolutely.
I think he was amazing in this movie. I think both of the actors, both of the lead actors, Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling, both have hilarious moments throughout.
Both having a blast, but Ryan Gosling just took it to another level.
Yeah, the character he brought to the screen was just hilarious every moment he was on screen.
I want to see more of Gosling doing this kind of stuff after seeing this movie. Not carbon copies of this character. I think he crafted this character. You almost think that that Shane Black was writing this script with him in mind, which to me, I said it earlier, I never would have pictured Ryan Gosling in a movie like this, and definitely given that type of performance that he gave, you would expect him to be the straight man playing it the more quiet guy.
Yeah, from what we've seen with him in the past. Although I don't know if you've seen Lars and the Real Girl.
You turned me on to it.
Okay,
it
well,
great.
so having seen that film, I knew that he had the comedy chops, that he could bring it. But this is a way different character. Even that film, Lars and the Real Girl, he's kind of a subdued character.
Yeah.
This is way different, but still hilarious. Yeah, I would love to see him do more comedies. I'd really love to see a sequel to this film.
Absolutely, and I don't say that often, you know.
It didn't make much money on opening weekend. I kind of think that it's not going to get a sequel, but maybe if enough word of mouth is out there, people go see it, it'll build up a reputation and just get a sequel down the road.
I want to talk a little bit later on about why we don't think it opened well, because you can't blame the advertisement. It did really a lot of advertising for this movie.
Yeah, it seemed like a lot of people were excited to see it from the advertisements.
And
we're talking about how funny it looked from the advertisements,
Yes.
even though I avoided them, which
You
was
did.
the smart move with this film.
This film was one of the rare films that put out a Redbound trailer before they ever put out another trailer.
Oh, really?
And the Redbound trailer had me hooked immediately.
So you saw the Red Band trailer?
I saw the Redbound trailer about 8 months ago.
And hopefully never watched it again, because that's the one that I watched.
I told you I didn't watch any trailers.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons I loved this movie.
Whatever 3 trailers they had after seeing the film, with the Red Band being one of them. It was like, holy shit. That's where I was saying certain character demises happen in that trailer that ruined great moments of the film.
I'm so happy I didn't see those, because this movie was completely fresh to me. I didn't have anything given away. There might have been a couple of jokes here and there that they threw in the Red Band trailer, but there were still so many more jokes that I didn't see in anything that all worked. I haven't seen Kiss Bang Bang for a while. I think I saw it about 3 or 4 years ago. And I've always felt it was slightly overrated. I do like it a lot. I think I had a lot more fun watching this movie.
I watched about 30 minutes of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang this weekend after seeing The Nice Guys to remind myself This was talked about similar to Richard Linklater's last film, saying this is a spiritual sequel to Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. So after seeing it, I wanted to kind of see if there was something to that. They have very similar plots in certain ways. They hit a lot of the same marks, but just watching a half hour of it, I had to turn it off because I felt its plotting was terrible.
Yeah, its plotting was kind of off. Yeah.
It has the unique narration. That's the one thing that stood out from that film is its narration by Robert Downey Jr. and he's being this unreliable narrator that keeps screwing up and has to remind himself, oh, I forgot to tell you about this, let me jump back there. And that made it fun from an editing standpoint and a storytelling standpoint. But I just felt like it was very cliche just in that first half hour that I own the movie, so it's not a terrible movie, but comparing it after having just seen this, it does not live up to what this film is, in my opinion.
Let's talk about Russell Crowe killing it in this movie and having a lot of fun too.
Yeah, he was the straight man of the bunch, but I thought he was still funny the way he handled certain situations.
He really was. He wasn't stereotyped. I thought they were going to take Russell Crowe and just be Russell Crowe, be the guy in LA Confidential.
Guy. Yes, exactly.
And just play off of Gosling. But instead, he had his own goofy moments too.
Yeah, exactly.
He wasn't just the typical straight shooter guy.
Yeah, I mean, even though he was the brute who was, he still had that soft side to him. There were moments where he's talking with Gosling's daughter and stuff and showing his soft side come through and stuff. But when they were in the thick of the action moments or the exciting scenes or whatever, you could still tell that he was nervous in some of those scenes. Even though he's the tough guy between the two of them, he was still could be kind of rattled in some of those moments. Like in the moment in the elevator, one of the funniest scenes of the movie when they go back into the elevator and they're coming back down.
That was so great.
So that is a scene that when I saw the trailer, well, I don't know which trailer it is, they show the aftermath of that is Gosling trying to hold back his vomit, like he's going to throw up. But that's not what happens in the movie. He just subtly starts shaking.
Involved. One thing we know for sure, something funny's going on. Oh, this just keeps getting better and better.
But Crow is next to him, like just as nervous. He doesn't have the same, physical comedy that comes through of just like the shaking or whatever. But you can tell that even in those moments that he's like, I'm not gonna face these fuckers. Like he's the tough guy, but he still had that softer side.
That's what I love.
He could still be rattled by what the situation that they were dealing with.
Exactly. He's not the stereotypical like, well, you go wait in the car and I'll take care of it. He's still scared about stuff. Yeah, he's tougher than Ryan Gosling's character, but he's by no means just like this indestructible Russell Crowe force. You know, that's what I enjoy that about him.
And them together, just couldn't beat that pairing.
Oh my goodness!
I would really love to see a sequel to this film.
Who would have ever thought to pair those two actors for this kind of movie? And I think that's some of the best chemistry I've seen in years between those two guys.
And even the 70s setting, like I wouldn't think of either of these guys really. Maybe Gosling, I could see him like things like Drive and stuff kind of have that. That's more 80s feel, but the throwback feel, I could see him fitting into that. But Russell Crowe, I wouldn't have picked him for this type of role, this 70s detective or whatever, but he nailed it.
And I've actually read a few things from people saying that this movie had no reason to be set in the 70s. Are you kidding me? The whole plot is based, we're getting into spoilers, the whole plot is based on making sure everyone's in one big grand location at the same time so that they can view something. If it was based on nowadays, they would just throw it on the internet.
YouTube, exactly.
What did you think about the actual mystery of it? Were you invested in that, or were you more just waiting to see those two doing things together?
It was definitely more of just seeing the chemistry of the lead actors. It's not that hard to follow along with
which is good.
The mystery is not that hard to follow along. It's a weak kind of plot. Kim Basinger's character,
pointless.
It seemed so obvious that she was the villain. Right from the moment they introduced her. She does kind of say it. She says, oh, my daughter thinks I'm trying to kill her. Well, you are. So just her being the kind of linchpin of what all this is set around. She was a weak character. Her assistant was a terrible character. Amelia was terrible. So the three people that are kind of pushing this evil plot along or whatever are the worst characters of the film.
You didn't like Amelia?
No, I hated Amelia.
So was it just me? I was enjoying the hell out of it because, again, it was just not what you were expecting this person to be like when they found her, and then they're almost like, oh shit, like I wish we hadn't found her.
I mean, she was an imbecile when they
Yeah,
found her.
I
So
know.
what did you expect her to be?
No, it's just when she's in the bedroom and she just starts ranting and raving, and she's so. I just thought her character was going to be Miss Damsel in Distress, Sweetie Pants, but instead she's just like a bumbling, ranting moron. But
Yeah.
she's so loud and screechy.
I think that was my least favorite scene of the movie was that scene where they have her sitting in bed. For whatever reason, she kept trying to sit up, and it was ruining like the pacing of the way that scene was shot for me. And every time she opened her mouth was like fingernails on a chalkboard. I thought everybody did such a great job in this movie from an acting standpoint. I wouldn't say Kim Basinger was terrible for her acting, but I've never really felt she was a strong actress. But the only one that I think was kind of a bad actress was Amelia, that character.
Okay.
And so kind of from the moment we met her, even before that scene, I was already turned off by her character. But that's the scene where she really gets a chance to open up and let us know who she is. And it just kept getting worse and worse.
But you know what's great about that is the payoff is, and it's another thing Shane Black does so well, is he just abruptly has her murdered. Basically right when we're getting into the third act and things are starting to unfold, John Boy comes and shoots her.
And that was a nice surprise. I mean, you saw it coming, the way it's shot, but it still kind of comes out of the blue. It happens very quickly, so even though you see it coming, it's still a surprise. But yeah, I just thought a lot of the things that had to do with her character were some of the weaker parts of the film.
We'll get into that. We'll talk about some of the problems that we had, because you had said it's not a perfect movie. I think we both agree that it's a pretty awesome movie, and so far this summer, it's blowing everything away in my opinion.
I mean, it's my favorite film I've seen so far this year. I really had a great time with this movie.
I like that. That's good. You got one. You got one pinned down.
Yeah, I finally got one I can recommend to people.
That's
happily.
good. Well, we kind of So, but
I liked Green Room. I thought that was another good one that we've reviewed. Of the 4 or 5 films we've reviewed, though, this was the one with repeat viewing.
There's movies that you watch for the first time that while you're watching them, you know that it's going to be a rewatchable movie over and over and over. Like when that movie shows up on Showtime or HBO, you're stopping on it.
It was actually a movie I kind of wanted to see right after watching it.
Yeah, I kind of did as well, because I did have pacing issues. The editor, he's good. It was good to see that he got to blossom and do something interesting with this one, but up until this film, he has done basically Michael Bay action movie type things. So it was nice. We can get into.
Well, he must know how to edit a lot of shots together.
That's the thing. I felt. I don't want to jump around too much because I want to get into some things that we had problems with, and the thing I had issue with the most was the daughter. But as far as how the editor was piecing things together, did you not feel that some of the evenings were a bit long? They're all over the city and giant set piece after set piece, and then they go home and they regroup, and then they go out again. And
I believe it's the end of their first night is when you've got Gosling sitting in the world's biggest ashtray smoking his cigarettes. That's the end of their first night,
right?
And that's seriously like half of the movie. But that night, I forget all the details of where they went, but that involved going to the party and the aftermath of the party with people being run over and killed and having to talk to the police and then having to talk to Kim Basinger's character.
A lot of stuff.
A ton of stuff that happened. And I felt the same way. That when it was like, oh, call me tomorrow in the afternoon.
Well, and
hilarious. But it was like, holy shit, that's all supposed to have happened in one night.
I also know. Yeah, I first picked up on it when Gosling was like, when he referred to you broke my arm yesterday. I was like, that was only yesterday? It seemed like this movie has been going on, and all these different events have been happening. It just seems like a lot to do within one day, and maybe that's the script, but editing didn't help because it just seemed like that party scene went on for so long.
And then the second day would end with the finale of the film, right? So really, the movie takes place in about 3 days.
Exactly.
It does feel like it takes a lot longer than that.
It certainly does.
Okay, I hope this isn't jumping around too much, but I did notice something at the very end of the film. Shane Black, every movie Shane Black has written has been a Christmas movie.
It turns into
correct?
Christmas, yeah.
It's a Christmas movie in that
wink,
final scene.
Wink, wink, yeah.
So was it Christmas the whole time? Because now you're pointing out how this really does take place over only 3 days. Now there is, I think, some separation
There's
between
a
that
lot
final
of
day,
separation. A whole court case went on.
but it's got to be like 6 months then.
Probably,
because
yeah.
it
But
did not feel like we were anywhere around Christmas
Shane
time.
Black knows that everybody realizes he writes on Christmas. I think that was a wink and a nod to say that, hey, I didn't make it during Christmas, thank God.
Yeah, no,
But I had to put Christmas in there somewhere. So even in the middle of summer for a giant Marvel tentpole action Iron Man movie, he had to make it fucking Christmas.
Yeah.
And it just didn't fit.
But that's his signature.
No, and it's funny.
I kind of felt like, well, think of it. Come to think of it, Lethal Weapon 2, I don't think is at Christmas, is it?
2 is not, but 1 is.
Yeah,
they
1
couldn't-
totally is.
They're not going to say
couldn't
they
have-
go on their next
So,
big adventure.
While
at Christmas
watching this,
again.
I was thinking sequel. I'd love to see this turn into a new Lethal Weapon series. It's
As
not
would
the
I.
same movie as Lethal Weapon. It's more of a comedy than an action movie. I prefer the first 2 Lethal Weapons where they're hard action movies with a
some
little
comedy
bit
edge,
of comedy,
right.
And then they kind of went more comedy from there.
That's when
So-
he left the project.
Yeah, so I'm okay with this being different, being more comedy with the action that it has. But I felt like, okay, this was great. I want to see a sequel, and that's where he can do the Christmas thing. But then I
That would be
realized
great.
he kind of shoehorned it right into the
But
end.
he did that on purpose. But he left it in such a great place, and I love that flyer so much. Sorry,
yeah.
you look Filipino. And
Yes.
didn't he say, I think I look more Mexican? Or
Yeah,
that opens up a whole bunch of things. And sequels to a movie like this, written and directed by Shane Black, wouldn't be like, oh, it's not as good as the first, because it would be essentially the same type of movie, but
Yeah.
they're on a different case.
on a different case.
That would be
with
fantastic.
New jokes.
I hope that this movie didn't cost that much money to where if it does well, I really hope it picks up a little bit after this weekend. It's a hard time to release it. They almost should have maybe released it as an end of summer thing that maybe caught some fire instead of right in the middle of our
Yeah.
Marvel and our X-Men's and all that stuff. But
Yeah, but I mean, it didn't really have strong competition this weekend. There was stuff that made money this weekend, but not stuff that I think there was an audience clamoring
well,
to
that's
see.
the thing. I wouldn't have put it up against Neighbors 2 because it took away some of Neighbor 2's business, which made Neighbors 2 kind of bomb.
Good.
But didn't do enough business itself because it opened up against another R-rated comedy.
Oh, that is an R-rated comedy.
Yeah,
and
so-
then Angry Birds is a comedy as
Angry
well.
Birds
So it really
destroyed those movies because it's a kid's movie.
well, and we expected that,
Yeah,
but
right.
it really was opening up against 2 other comedies.
Yeah.
So kind of had its work cut out for it. It needed to open up against like a Warcraft or something that no one's looking
Exactly.
for that for comedy, so they're going to go look for this for comedy.
Or it would have been, yeah. Well, we can talk about all that all day
Yeah,
long. I
it's
mean,
all speculation.
I thought they did a great job marketing the movie. It really made me want to see it. And it just
same with me without even seeing the trailers, like just looking at the poster, knowing who was involved, and yeah, like my method when I try to avoid these trailers, sometimes I hear the first couple lines in a trailer before I can avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever was at the beginning of the trailer, I can't remember right now, was enough to make me go, oh, the style of this, the setting, the way Gosling looked in just the first
Yeah,
shot you
yeah.
see of him. This is going to be funny. I want to see this.
And I'm wondering if that's why his built-in female fan base didn't flock out to see this, was because they kind of make him look like a goofball. And same with Lars and the Real Girl was an independent film. It didn't open up as much as this one.
Yeah,
did.
that
This
was-
is a wide release, and it made $11 million. It's just not
should have
great.
made more. Yeah, should have made like 20.
Or like 15 would have looked better than.
Yeah.
My biggest problem with this movie, getting back to the movie itself,
Yes.
is what Shane Black traps himself in, but no one else seems to mind, so I guess it's only a trap in my mind, is he has to write in, I would say dopey yet smart, strong yet vulnerable,
Kids.
kid female characters. He's used a boy character once, I believe that was in Iron Man 3,
Man.
where he shoehorned in what he was hoping was the movie's heart by putting a kid in there that really
is
made
that-
no sense in the second act of the movie.
Is that the kid at the beginning of the film? I
thought it was the actor. I thought
it's-
he's also in Jurassic World.
Okay, yeah.
I thought it was, but then he didn't have a big enough part. But I
Well,
don't
I
know.
figured they just put him
You
in
mean
there.
the guy that found Misty Mountains?
Yeah.
One of my favorite porno names of all time now.
That's got to already exist, right?
That is the greatest porno name ever.
But this being a comedy and its setting, it worked for me.
So I get it, the way Shane Black likes to kind of root these movies with a child to kind of play along. He did it Last Boy Scout with Darian, Bruce Willis's daughter.
I mean, if we looked at his filmography, I think every single one that he wrote.
You gotta wonder if The Predator is going to take place during Christmas and feature a young preteen
I would not
female.
put it past him. But I liked the girl in this. You seem to
I
say
liked
that was
the
your
actress.
Okay.
I do like the actress. I thought she was strong. There comes a point in a movie where being too excessive with the same scenario over and over again, it just got really repetitive for me. Okay, I get it. She hides in the trunk, which I thought was a really funny scene because then he closes the trunk and they're like, well, we can't let you just close the trunk. Then he calls her a cab. She doesn't get in it. Fine. Then she's trying to do her own detective work and she gets captured. Spoiler. And there's a whole big mess of things. She basically frees herself every time she gets into trouble. Her dad and Russell Crowe don't do shit. But that big scenario, she avoided being murdered and or kidnapped or worse. And then they just bring her right back out another time, and she's in the big climax of the movie, like where she should have been killed if she was any normal kid. It just seems like, okay, now but I know it's supposed to be funny on Ryan Gosling's part. I told you to go stay at Jessica's house tonight, and she just kind of.
Yeah, and I think in the climax you have the John boy showing up at the house and attacking them and attacking the friend Jessica or whatever, throwing her out the window. All of that.
That was pretty brutal.
Pretty brutal for sure. But I think that they keep her with her because remember this all happens in those 2 nights. So
there's got to be
that all happened,
somebody
they took
you could
her.
Take her to.
Yeah. I don't know how many friends Ryan Gosling really has in the film.
But that's a minor problem because to me it just seems kind of like cheating when it comes to like, oh, does this movie have heart? This movie has a ton of heart. It's in the chemistry of the leads.
Exactly.
I don't need her to take away their screen time together.
Yeah, because I thought she was. She was fun. They have her be the typical wise kid where she's like...
Yeah, she's just like Darian from Last Boy
age.
Scout, except she's not cussing.
Exactly, yeah. But, I liked her acting, actually. I was impressed with her acting, her spunky kind of character that she had. She felt authentic for the time period and for her age, even though she was a little bit wise for her age. In fact, I'd say she was better than most of the kids he writes into his films.
I would agree with that. She did have a more prominent role too. She wasn't just a kid who gets kidnapped. She had something to say, and she was as smart as her dad in a lot of regards. But standout scene-wise, it was always scenes where she wasn't in. Like you said, one of the funniest parts in the movie, most entertaining parts, is when they get up to the top floor, they hear what's going on, and they get back in the elevator. That was just...
I also loved... Another scene I think ruined in the trailer that I think is hilarious is when he's trying to break into the bar at the beginning and he punches his hand through the window and cuts his arm.
Was
and
that
almost
in the trailer?
Be good detective.
That's a lot of blood.
Death. Yeah.
I think the theater was laughing the hardest at that part because you don't know yet what a moron he is.
Yes, exactly.
Until that scene.
That's like the beginning of learning how stupid he can be.
That was so great.
I
didn't see that in any trailer.
One of the little moments that happens right before he punches the window, he's trying to wrap the
And it
handkerchief
falls
around,
off.
and it flips up. So he just wants to fold that little edge back in front of his hand, but he's not protected. You can see, what's going to happen, and then he punches the window.
It's just done perfectly. That's a lot of blood. And it just gets worse and worse.
And then I thought a great moment of kind of editing that had the juxtaposition is when they cut to the inside of the ambulance and they're like, we're losing him. It's like all he did was punch his hand through a window. He's about to die.
That was one of the funniest parts for sure. And when he's faking I love him walking around drunk at that party. And just all the weird, how mishmash what he's trying to say to people.
Yeah, how slurred his speech becomes.
And again, the editing was a little strange. How he's swimming in the whatever that was where the mermaids are. I guess it was just like a pool, but you could see through it into the house.
Where are you going? I think this is gonna work better if we split up. Wow, that's really insensitive.
Emilios, run!
You're in the pool?
Yeah.
Why?
I had to question the mermaids. What were you doing while I was working?
And then the next time you see him, his hair's dry and he's got his clothes on again.
Yeah, because he had to remind us that he was in the pool.
Yeah, he's like, I was
in the pool. What were you doing in the pool?
I was questioning the mermaids. What were you doing while I was at work? Good line, but that scene was strange because I was like, Did that one guy that served him a drink give him drugs or something?
I almost thought that.
Yeah,
He's
me
like,
too.
here, have another one. And then he's so messed up after that. Because if he's such a drunk, that's his daily
wouldn't have
life,
been-
why did he get drunk so
Where
quick?
he was caught off guard like that.
Yeah.
But I love that when he's out on the balcony and he's faking getting shot and he just falls over
the hill. Any scene that kind of had something questionable where you're like, that's what I was saying, like I can overlook a lot of the faults. That might be something where I would consider that a fault in another movie, that how drunk he was if he is a drunk. But it works for the effect of the comedy
It does.
in this film.
It
works.
totally does.
There's so many jokes that play off.
I was
of
keeping that in
that
here, but knowing like who gives a shit. This movie's so much fun right now.
Yeah, and there's plenty of movies that I have fun with, but I still want to hold the flaws against the film. But and I will on this one still. That's just the way I watch movies. I still want them to be perfect if they can be.
It's like being biased. Like I know The Force Awakens has problems, and I don't care. I just was like, I just
especially
didn't care.
while watching it. I probably felt the same way while watching Force
'Cause,
Awakens.
well,
It
you're
was
like, it doesn't
this is
suck.
a blast. It's not sucking, and that kind of goes for just general movie watching
Yeah,
these
it
days.
really is.
Sitting through this movie was such a blast because it didn't suck.
Yeah.
Because I was enjoying myself, and that's a rare time at the movie.
Funny that this is that movie that does that to us. And it should have been something like Batman v Superman, but it was joyless and it was terrible, and I wanted to leave in the middle of it. But I wanted to see how much worse it was going to get. My favorite scene in the movie, while we're talking about, again, I think Shane Black he doesn't get enough credit for how because his dialogue isn't pretentiously witty. It's not like it's not like a Sorkin or even like how Whedon tries to be so witty.
Yeah.
He has a different way about it where it's more everyday person, but it comes together in a comedic way. I love the scene because it was reminiscent of Lethal Weapon, and not comparing the two in any way, shape, or form, but when he's sitting
really
on the
can't.
world's biggest ashtray and he's having his 1800 drink of the day or however much, and him and Russell Crowe finally have their little quiet moment where they're gonna maybe get to know each other. And I was like, where's this going? And then Russell Crowe tells his diner incident story, kind of in the vein of like Riggs telling his story in Laos and shooting, but done in a different way completely. But it's that scene where you're like, these two are they're gonna have like this intimate moment, and it's gonna be it worked in character development for both of those characters. Told us a lot about Russell Crowe, his good spirit. He's not a bad person at all. And then it also tells us that Ryan Gosling's he's just not that guy. He's not really a stand-up heroic guy. And when he tells him this whole story and then he realizes Gosling's been sleeping the whole time, I loved that because I was invested into that scene, and then seeing that they kind of gave it that spin was great.
And they play it off later in the film when it comes up again. He's like, "What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
That
was
was last night." Yeah, there was a lot of things that are kind of plant and payoff where they set it up early and it comes back into play later in the film. Not all of them worked perfectly, but some of them worked great.
I think I was aware of Shane Black even before I knew his name because Monster Squad was my favorite movie when I was a kid. And it was, I think, one of the first movies where I was like quoting dialogue from it. So
would you compare? I want to get back to Ryan Gosling for a second because this movie just wouldn't have been the same now if anybody else was in it. I mean, you could think of a handful of people that they might have thought of beforehand, but then you throw them all out the door as soon as you see what he did with this. Is it safe to say, or is it insulting to say, that he's kind of had? This is kind of like a role that changed the way I looked at Leo DiCaprio when he did Wolf of Wall Street, where he changed everything. I mean, but this is even a little steeper than that because Leo was still sort of being Leo, but he did all this comedic stuff that we didn't know he could do so convincingly.
Yeah.
I think Gosling's always been he's always been a really deep, emotional, like grounded actor. I've always really liked everything he's done, even when he's given 5 or 6 lines, let's say like in something like Drive. I don't know. He's pretty much got it all at this point.
Yeah, I think this one proved that he should be doing more comedies. He can switch from being a buffoon to like the kind of laid-back drunk buffoon to kind of the high-strung energy that he has in the moments where he's freaking out or whatever. On a dime, he can switch immediately, and it just this character. I'm trying to think who else has that same kind of energy that could have pulled this off. I'm sure there are a number of actors. You're mentioning Leonardo DiCaprio. But I think the quirkiness that he brought to this role is something that is unique to him.
I agree. He's made some interesting choices. He's made movies that got booed out of Cannes, as everybody has. But he doesn't seem like he takes himself too seriously, which is good. You know, he's not too invested in winning some Oscar. He doesn't really give a shit that he's like beloved by females and like that's a big thing. I think he's just like picking meaty roles and like good directors to work with.
Yeah, I think so. He's making wise choices.
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
and Russell Crowe needs, dare I say, like a resurgence. I mean, he hasn't really left, but he's been kind of forgettable lately.
For sure. And a lot of it is the movies he's picking. I've never
Yeah.
really stopped liking Russell Crowe
Me
as an
neither.
actor. Early in his career, he was one of the most impressive actors. He had a string of films back to back to back to back or whatever that were each role was so different from the last one. When
You're talking about Virtuosity, right?
Yes, exactly. When you go from Virtuosity to
Or Romper Stomper.
well, Romper Stomper is
Wow.
one of his diverse roles.
Oh, man.
But like I'm blanking on the name right now. The Michael Mann film.
The Michael Mann film.
The Insider.
Oh,
When you
The
go from
Insider.
The Insider to Gladiator to Beautiful Mind, those three performances back to back to back.
Right. Especially how he looked from each one of those, completely
Exactly.
different.
Yeah. I
A
definitely
Beautiful Mind is my favorite performance of his. I think. I personally don't think he should have won the Oscar for Gladiator. He didn't have enough to say in that movie.
I think he deserved it for Gladiator, but I think he deserved it as well for Beautiful Mind.
Right. Okay.
Well, no. I'd have to look at my list to see if
But
I agreed with
this
Gladiator.
role for him,
Because Gladiator was 2000, there might have been a better performance.
if you were to, if his agent were to hand him this script and say, okay, so this movie's set in the 70s, it's a private detective story with some like conspiracy things going on. You're the rough and tough guy who beats people up for money. He would have automatically been like, okay, so this is like LA Confidential, but not in the 50s, it's in the 70s. Then he read the script and he's like, wait a minute, this is not that character. This is a completely different character. It, on the surface, seems like, okay, that's just Russell Crowe. That's a perfect job for him. But he gets kind of overweight in this. He's like odd looking, you know.
Well, I don't know if that was for the film. I think that's just.
I think Russell Crowe's just
these
embracing the
days.
way he naturally looks and
Yeah.
he's not working out anymore because
Yeah.
he doesn't give a shit.
He's not playing the hero anymore.
No.
Too often. I mean, he's still a hero in this, but
But I we keep gushing about Gosling, but Crowe his character was different than he was. I don't want to say the quieter one because that was another great surprise about this movie was he was not like just he wasn't just rolling his eyes to everything Gosling was doing. He was in on the stupidity most of the time.
yeah, for sure. Well, because they both are they're very similar in that way. They both are buffoons to some degree, but they both are good at their job to some degree. Like they keep establishing or making Gosling look like he doesn't have a clue at what he's doing, and then he'll always pull something out of like, no, I was paying attention to this, or no, you know what, I figured this out that you didn't figure out, and then sometimes it backfires on him, but always for comedy. Like everything in this movie is setting up the next joke.
It is. Well, it is, but you don't have in a movie like this. You don't have to go as far as creating the characters as well and as subtly as Shane Black did, where we see Ryan Gosling lives in this big, huge house. Oh, we don't need this kind of house. It's him grieving still, because his wife is dead. And then, those touches where I love those scenes where you're getting to know who he is when he's taking money from the old lady who, oh, my husband went missing. When? Right after his funeral. And he's taking money trying to find,
Such a great setup for his character.
It is.
I mean, that's the opening scene for him, I believe. And I was dying laughing. I just knew how fun this movie was going to be watching his character after that scene. And then he immediately goes outside and gets in the car with his daughter. He's too drunk to drive.
He's too drunk to drive.
He asks her, am I an asshole? Yes, of course you are. Oh, shut up and drive. Great dialogue, great chemistry between all those characters.
I agree. I liked Matt Bomer in this movie, too. It was good to see him doing that kind of part.
I was torn with him. I mentioned things that I kind of liked and didn't like. His character was one of the ones I did like him, but at the same time, there was just something about him. Specifically, the scene where he shows up at the house and gets the gun pulled on him, it's not even so much his fault, but like the Jessica character, how stupid she is to run past him and get captured, but then being thrown out the window was a total surprise and was awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome.
But it was just kind of like, that scene was kind of working when he first got there, and then when he pulls out the knife, he should have just been shot probably, and then she tries to run, and it just... Those were like cliched moments that seemed written in to facilitate the plot. And there's a number of those in the movie. But a lot of those things I just kind of overlook and go, it leads to something funny. That moment leads to her being thrown out the window, which was shocking. So...
now that you mention
sets up something I kind of liked, but there were certain forced moments.
There were
when
when they're both coming home and Matt Bomber's just walking out of the house and going into his trunk. I was kind of like, what the hell's going on? Wasn't he just inside? So yeah, there's a couple parts, but
probably some editing things that it doesn't quite flow, or things seem a little bit out of place the way the film is edited.
Yeah, it had a little bit of pacing issues.
I did like John Boy's character in certain scenes. He was menacing. I think Shane Black does a good job of writing these smaller roles for these villains. A number of those other films we've mentioned have small villain roles that were memorable or seemed very ruthless for the small screen time that they had. But the other thing I mentioned that I thought I liked, but I don't know if I really liked it, was the dream sequence. That really caught me off guard.
It caught me laughing, but I was like,
guard. It took me a while to laugh because I didn't know what the hell was going on.
But you were talking about jokes that are set up for later on. That was the best setup for a joke of the entire movie. When he runs to Healy's ankle to pull the ankle gun out, and he's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Your ankle gun." He's like, "Did I dream that?" That whole thing, there was no ankle gun ever. I thought that was so clever.
Yeah. So like I said, some things are set up to pay off a joke later where it totally works. But maybe the setup seems a little bit forced.
The bee, I didn't really care. I was like, okay, they're just trying
to...
Well,
they mentioned the killer bees, we got to be worried. And then it comes in at the very end when he sees the bee on the bar or whatever. It's there for a few more plant and payoff, but it was just... That was them saying, well, how can we make this a very obvious... out of place dream sequence. We'll put a giant bee smoking a cigarette in the backseat.
See, and that, again, that's one of those parts... Okay, so then they crash, and then... That night just continues and continues and continues. Yeah, I think almost like maybe another wake up, maybe another day would have just made it. And again, most people aren't giving a shit about that or noticing that. I just noticed that these nights are going on for a hell of a long time as opposed to the days.
Well, they are LA nights.
They're LA nights in the 70s.
Party late into the wee hours. I thought the world of 1977 was very well realized. It felt very believable.
Los Angeles, they recreated
Los
Felix
Angeles,
building,
1977.
the Felix car lot.
Obviously, a lot of those are CG, but they don't. You can tell they're CG, but they don't stand out as like a terrible looking.
Well,
CG.
yeah, because they're tracking shots. They're just there and they're gone.
Yeah, nothing that they did from an effects standpoint in the film stood out as poor.
No,
it's not like the greatest special effects you've ever seen, but it doesn't need to be. They're not using much in the film.
As film lovers, how cool would it be to have that 16mm projector come up out of your floor and just watch something on your wall? That would be so great.
That would be pretty badass.
Yeah, that was another really nice twist to the mystery. Was that old lady was watching. She did actually see her dead daughter.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of picked up on that at some point when they were talking about this film being made and stuff like that. Oh, that was another scene that I thought was pretty hilarious. I don't know if you know that the projectionalist, why do they call him a projectionalist?
I don't know. I thought it was a joke.
Was that a joke? Because he says it.
He says
the first time
I think he just didn't
himself,
know what he was called.
He didn't even know what he is. Okay, because I was trying to follow.
I think it was he's just an idiot and he doesn't know what he's doing.
So do you know who that is?
He looked familiar.
Val Kilmer's son.
Is that Val Kilmer's son?
And then the kid
on the bike is
on
the best.
he gives them too much information. It's another moment that's just kind of set up to move the plot along and give them the information they need. Like, would he really remember the name of the movie? They call out to him, hey, what's the name of the movie?
Well, he's a kid who watches porno, so
maybe he would.
I just love.
But there was great lines.
I got a big dick.
I offered to show him my dick. Why? Because I got a big dick. Yeah, so that scene was funny. All those little characters were great. All the different bartenders in the movie that had funny moments. There's a couple different ones.
Jack Kilmer.
Jack Kilmer, yeah. So he had to get a Kilmer in this movie in some way. The bad guys, the two henchmen, were pretty fun.
Oh, it was great to see.
Keith David was great.
Oh, so good to see him. Yeah.
The Blueface guy was a little
the
bit.
poor man's Crispin Glover.
Is that who- oh yeah, he overacted a little bit, but you know he was supposed to be this kind of wild hitman type character. He's even. He's going over the top in that one scene, and Russell Crowe's like, "Hey, tell this guy to be professional or whatever."
If
so
anything, he was the most menacing because he was kind of more psychotic and not calculated, and he was more menacing. Like John Boy, when he comes in, obviously he's more skilled and stuff, but he was more calculated. He didn't seem quite as menacing because the other guy was capable of anything, pretty much. So, and that again, that was Russell Crowe character building right there for Healy, where. He just doesn't want this guy in the world. Period. Yeah, he's protecting himself, but he also doesn't.
Himself. That's
he
part of
also
the reason
doesn't
he's
want
even
this.
doing this.
Yeah, he is.
He's worried about these guys coming back after him, and if he
that's
can
true.
take him out, he's going to.
Right. But he begins to develop a little relationship with the daughter, with Gosling's daughter too. Which again,
that moment with her kind of forced morals. I mean, it makes sense that she would be who her father is and what she sees him do on a daily basis, and the morals that he has when he's taking money from little old ladies.
He takes the opposite
route. So it's understandable, but those were kind of two of the moments in the movie that felt like really forced plotting to give Russell Crowe's character an arc at the end.
And that canister of film, when that bounced, that thing would have splattered all over the place.
I could nitpick all kinds of things that didn't work. The rolling film can. He gets shot in the film can.
Yeah,
have you ever held a film can? Dude, it's the most flimsy freaking piece of metal.
Yeah, the film can somehow stopped a bullet.
And I don't think it has a bullet mark on it when he's holding it at the end of the film.
I don't think it does
either. There's some continuity errors or whatever in the film.
Yeah.
But it's so funny, and the chemistry works so well between the two leads, and everybody else really works well in the film. I don't hold a lot of the little plotting issues.
I don't hold them either. That's why I love this movie, and I love the screenplay. Love the two lead actors. I stand with what I said at the beginning. I think it's Shane Black's best directing that he's done.
Yeah,
he hasn't directed a lot.
I don't think the direction stands out all that much. I think what he did with the action was great. I think that worked well. It wasn't hard to follow like so many action movies nowadays want to be. But yeah, I mean that's actually kind of a nice thing to say, that the direction didn't stand out. It worked for the style that the film needed. It had kind of that 70s noir
because
feel
he doesn't necessarily have an aesthetic to him, but he has, like you said, his
writing is his aesthetic.
Yeah,
but from a visual standpoint, I don't think there's much there.
I don't either. Right.
But he's only made 3 films, and probably if you watch all 3 of them, they are very similar from the way that he shoots things.
But it keeps it enjoyable, and like you said, it doesn't stand out. It just,
it's not distracting in any way. I thought the very opening shot had kind of a nice little visual of you're scanning across the back of the Hollywood sign, all covered in graffiti, and it's just setting up. We're gonna be seeing the kind of seedy underbelly of Hollywood.
Yeah, that was great. And then it goes straight into a backyard.
Yeah.
That
whole opening scene I thought was great. It was so perfect. The kid getting the porn magazine from under his dad's bed.
That was awesome.
It's like things we've all done, and you don't know anything about the story yet or the movie yet, so you're just following along with what's this kid doing. But we know
it's like the opening of a show, of a weekly mystery show. Like, we're setting up this week's mystery, so we open up with what we're gonna see first, and we follow this boy. And I love that when you see. It's just such a goofy when he's turning his back to the window and you see that car just start to bounce down the hill. I was the only one in the theater, but I started laughing my ass off.
Totally,
because it could have just been done so straightforward, but instead it's like this weird bouncing car.
But I think that whole opening sequence is directed really well, like you're saying, how that's in the background, and then he steps just far enough in the hallway for the thing to totally barrel through the house. And I wouldn't say any of the acting was beyond it being funny and being great comedy acting. There really isn't any serious acting in this film, but it doesn't.
Well, that doesn't necessarily. I still don't understand why comedic performances aren't looked at higher when it comes to award season. It's just as hard, if not harder, to do some of those types of things, based off of a script. That's not a known property. You're taking that character from that page and you're making something out of it. And both of those guys, you know, doing despicable things here and there, beating people up, are still both extremely like charming and likable. That to me, like when you're crafting that as an actor, that's just as important.
I think just most of us lean towards dramatic acting usually.
I
when
get
you're
it.
Thinking about awards, but I did nominate him for Lars and the Real Girl.
I remember you did, yeah.
Both as a funniest actor, but also as just best actor. Because he totally deserved it.
He completely deserved it. Yeah, that was a good movie. That was off the wall, out of nowhere, strange movie that he tends to do.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the action I thought was great in it. The gunshots and the fight scenes and stuff like that, they were loud and visceral, which I always like in action movies. It was violent at times. There's a number of people who meet very violent ends in this film. A number of bystanders that get shot.
Yeah, I did.
And
notice
they never go
make
back
mention
to
of it again. Yeah,
but that probably both of the ones that you see in the film get shot probably died from their wounds.
It's kind of an interesting decision. There's one innocent bystander who gets shot that the camera like paid particular attention to, where like it literally panned over just to show that. It's like, maybe it's just to show the grittiness, or like that this isn't self-contained, that someone can get shot, but it didn't seem necessary. But I still thought it was great. It was it was fun.
The alcoholism. What did you get out of Russell Crowe's issues with alcohol? That he was an alcoholic in the past. He's trying to avoid drinking. We don't really know what it's from. In fact, the one scene that sets up his backstory, like his romantic backstory, we don't even know if it's his wife leaving him or a girlfriend. He spits water in her face. He's not even drinking alcohol in that scene.
That was fucking hilarious. When she goes, "I'm fucking your dad." It's just I love those really effective, quick flashbacks that just show like one sentence and then it comes back. Those are so good.
There were some great moments of editing with like just the quick cuts that help sell the jokes.
But
so they never really established what his drinking problem is, and now that I'm thinking about it, that scene that's supposed to kind of take you back and show a little of his backstory, he's drinking water. So something's happened to him long before any of what we know in this movie that got him off the wagon.
Yeah,
maybe the whole thing is a payoff for that joke at the end,
where at least you're drinking again.
At least you're drinking again. I mean, maybe that's the whole payoff.
I didn't really get the sense that he was a hardcore alcoholic, and if I did, that's one thing.
He's drinking from the bottle at the end.
But that's one thing I'll fault this movie for, is it didn't establish a little bit more of Russell Crowe's backstory as it did March and Healy. Like it didn't establish quite as much, and maybe because it wasn't as necessary. I do love the subtle hints. I love where he's protecting the little girl and he beats the shit out of the guy, and then the girl's friend is like, I feel so safe when I'm with you, and he's like, you're short $7. Like he's just counting his money. So there's little bits like that, but then again, he meets Gosling's daughter, and he's just like a teddy bear. So he's kind of confused. He's a little more ambiguous than Gosling is. Gosling is wide in the open. You know everything about him by the end of the movie, more or less. So and that sets up another sequel right there. Is because now you have a Russell Crowe drinking out of the bottle and smoking a cigar, and you didn't see that the whole movie. He's always turning down drinks the entire movie.
Yeah, and maybe Gosling will come to his senses and kind of. Well,
I don't want to see a role reversal, that's for sure. Yeah. No, I'd rather just see Gosling be the way he is and see Crowe just kind of unhinged but still funny. You know, John Boy, I guess he fits in really well with the mold of this film, because he's supposed to be kind of this like ruthless, vicious, trained killer, but he's still kind of an idiot who makes lots of mistakes too.
He does.
Like, he gets totally won over by a 13-year-old girl the first
true.
time we're introduced to him.
Yeah.
And he takes it out on her friend by tossing her out the window, but then he can't shoot either one of those guys with a giant machine gun to save his life. So yeah, I think he fits in good, because if you really take a step back and look at him, he's not really that crazy, or he's not really that menacing.
Yeah, all these things would be nitpicking. The movie is so entertaining. It delivers on everything it promised. It's just fun. That's the best description of this movie. It's just a lot of fun, and that's something missing at the movies. I got a couple other just like things that I really liked, but they would just be mentioning jokes that we thought were funny. The shirt made of money.
Oh, that was great.
It was pretty much that whole scene. They show up at the bar. They have that that interaction with the bartender. Then they do go upstairs. That whole scene at that.
Well, I just love Russell Crowe when he's like, so that John Boy guy just walked past, and that's who they're looking for, and he's like, well, I don't want to go follow him. He's like,
yeah, exactly. Even getting to that scene is them misunderstanding the airport situation.
That was awesome.
It's like I'm trying to backtrack to, okay, well, where does the funniness start? You just keep going back, and every scene is hilarious before that scene.
I love how March. I love how he's so... And they trick the audience there because he's supposed to be a decent private investigator. And then he just has this epiphany when he's spent the morning kind of drunk and they're just going to like go and do things without him because he's just more trouble than he's worth.
Exactly.
And then he goes, you know what? I know exactly what that stands for. And we're completely convinced that
Totally.
all this shit is right and he's like a genius. And then they just... That place has been closed for 2 years, and he's just like, so the airport, yeah.
That's another one of those editing juxtapositions where they play the joke, where they, after they find out that it's been torn down, they immediately cut to, well, if they don't have a 10:30 curfew, they need to implement one or bring it back because really, they need to get that thing back.
Yeah, a lot of hidden, small, subtle, funny things that chuckle but keep you invested and keep you happy, even if you're not laughing out loud. Like Kim Basinger's character, who was she, like the Chief Justice or something like that, or she was a big,
I forget what her position
something like that.
was,
but she's like, so I'm gonna hire you guys, and she's writing a $10,000 check, and he's like, say 5,000.
Rip. Yeah, that was great. There's another filmmaker that I thought while watching this film, it really just made me think about this guy's style.
Okay.
Martin McDonagh. He directed In Bruges and Seven Psychopaths. The style that he does in at least those two films, and I think The Guard has it as well, very similar to this. It's kind of got that, wild, offbeat black humor, but it also mixes in the violence and the action side to things.
I would say that In Bruges and Seven Psychopaths are a little bit more excessive as far as violence goes, and a little.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely more.
And definitely more serious tone.
Yeah, I mean, the violence has real stakes in all of these films, including this film.
Yeah.
That's what I like. It's even though all of these are comedies, the violence that they bring to these films does matter. When people die, it matters to the plot, even though there's some bystanders that don't seem to matter to the plot in The Nice Guys.
But they kill a midget in Bruges.
Yeah, but especially Seven Psychopaths, I really thought that those were similar style of film. But McDonagh's films also have a bit more drama. All of the films have a bit more of a serious side than I would think Nice Guys. Nice Guys is just pure fun all the way through.
So where do you want to rank this movie amongst Shane Black's? We can go by screenplays because he's only done 3.
I think I wouldn't really, if we were talking directorial, this would be my favorite.
By a mile.
By screenplay, I mean, this is probably his funniest screenplay. You really can't go against Lethal Weapon 1 and 2. I'm more of a fan of Lethal Weapon 2, more because it's a more exciting film than Part 1, but I think 1, like if I was really comparing the screenplays, 1 does a great job of setting up those characters.
Lethal Weapon 2 does what you're supposed to do with a great sequel. You're supposed to up the stakes, give more character development, give them new arcs, and it does that flawlessly. Yeah, so
I enjoy 2 as a film better. You got Joe Pesci in there and stuff, but I think that the first one would probably be his best screenplay. This film, The Nice Guys, would be his funniest screenplay. And I also am a big fan of Long Kiss Goodnight. I really think that movie has some cheesy stuff in it. The bad guys are a bit cheesy. The addition of the kid character in every film that he makes kind of adds a layer of cheese to some things. But I thought all of his movies work as a buddy film in some way, and that one, Gina Davis and Samuel L. Jackson were great. Most of his films, you've got buddies, 2 guys or whatever. This one worked well with totally different characters.
I enjoyed The Long Kiss Goodnight a lot too. I remember watching it for the first time. It was the late 90s or whatever, and I was still, like, Gina Davis was still kind of on top of the world, sort of, and she was convincing. It was a fun romp, it was over the top, but again, like, that movie nowadays would just be some known property. It would have to be like, oh, let's do a Black Widow movie and just steal Shane Black maybe the biggest problem for me with Iron Man 3 was I think that was the first movie he was attached to that was somebody else's property first. So he's good with original ideas, and that's what The Nice Guys is. It's a fucking original screenplay with original characters. And well, I'm with you. Same exact rankings as far as the screenplay goes. You got to give it to Lethal Weapon. Lethal Weapon started something that would become, I don't know, close to 20 years of straight buddy action. Lethal Weapon 1 and 2 are not buddy action comedies. They're action movies,
yes,
with little moments of comedy thrown in and side characters that are funny.
Yeah.
It wasn't until the third one that they decided to make the Three Stooges out of it.
Exactly.
So, but this
although
one,
Three Stooges is established from the first film as, you know,
I
what's
think
his name loves the Three Stooges.
I think they just rolled with that
They
and
rolled
turned
with
him
it.
into Curly.
Yes,
after
exactly.
those movies.
It was silly.
So where do you want to put this on the Gulp?
The Gulp meter,
the Gulp
or whatever.
meter.
So yeah, I would give this 7.75 gulps.
Oh wow, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I'm gonna give it 7 gulps. So yeah, you can tell that John and I both really enjoyed this movie. Please go out and see it. We want to keep it in the theater as long as we can.
We want to see it make some money, maybe even make enough money to generate a sequel.
Yeah, and when you see it and you like it, go tell other people to see it, because the more it makes, the more likely we would be getting a sequel in the next few years. And once you see this movie, you'll know why that would be a great thing.
Well, definitely go out and see The Nice Guys. We both really enjoyed this movie. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you do, go ahead and like us at the bottom or leave a comment. Let us know what some of your favorite buddy cop comedies are, or what some of your favorite Shane Black screenplays are. And come back and listen to us on the next one.
This is Ben.
And this is John.
Cinema Gulp.
Thanks a lot.
We drink your cinema.
I drink it up.
You're the world's worst detective.
The world's worst.
March! Gun! Gun! Fuck! Shit!
Amelia, run!
I'm alive!
Look at the bright side. Nobody got hurt.
People got hurt.
I'm saying I think they died quickly, though, so I don't think that they got hurt.
Come on!